All right, we interrupt our coverage to take you live to Washington. You see President Biden there preparing to deliver the keynote address at the United Auto Workers Union Conference. Just moments ago, we heard UAW President Shawn Fain announce that the union is endorsing Mr. Biden for president. Let's listen to his remarks.
My commitment to be the most pro-union president ever. I'm proud you have my back. Let me just say I'm honored to have your back and you have mine. That's the deal. It comes down to seeing the world the same way. It's not complicated. You know, my dad, who never went to college, was the smartest, toughest, most gracious man I knew, who managed a car dealership for the bulk of my life, taught me a very important lesson. He'd say, Joey, this is God's truth. A job is about a lot more than a paycheck. It's about decency. It's about your dignity. It's about your place in the community. It's about being able to look your kid in the eye and say, honey, it's going to be okay, and mean it. And mean it. Folks, that's what the UAW is all about, and it's always been that way. Just after the UAW was founded nearly 90 years ago, it launched what historians call the most important strike in the 20th century. Flint, 1936. Walter Reuther organized a sit-down in the factory. They weren't sure what would happen. They were worried about getting beat up, but they were determined. They were determined. And it took 44 days, but they won the first collective bargaining victory in American history. And the leadership of the UAW spread across the country. It led to the first substantial wage increase in a long time, the first cost of living allowance, the first employer-provided health care. Within 4 years, workers across the entire auto industry unionized, inspiring workers across other industries as well, giving life to new industries in the labor movement. I share that history with you because all of you made history again. I'm confident, and I mean this, 90 years from now, people are going to look back on the impact you had, you in this room. Just like them 90 years ago, you matter now. You lead. And I respect all of you here today. You represent unions that always led, always lifted, and always inspired workers. The UAW legacy from Walter Reuther to Shawn Fain today. Shawn, you took a lot of heat, but you demonstrated extraordinary leadership. You did. And that's what I saw a few months ago during your historic UAW strike. This time, in Belleville, Michigan. And I'll say I was so damn proud to stand in that picket line with you. It's not the first UAW picket line I stood in my home state of Delaware. I've done it many times. But it's the first time a president did it, I found out later. I've always fought for a strong auto industry, with UAW-built cars leading the world. This is about a simple proposition. You built these iconic companies. You built GM. You built these companies. You sacrificed to save them in the worst of times. And you deserve to benefit when these companies thrive. As Shawn said, record profits mean record contracts. I'm serious. And that's what you got, record wage increases, winning back cost of living adjustments, greater retirement security, more paid leave, and eliminating tears. Whoa, 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 whoa. You all know my position. I'm tired. I've tried, you know, I'm tired about jobs going overseas, having products shipped to. Look, during the Trump administration, a lot of administrations before that, what'd they do? So many people around America lost their sense of pride. Because whether it was an automobile company or any company at all, that factory that was there for 30 years, hiring, maybe it only had 150 people in it, but it was a heart of the community. Guess what? Corporate America found the cheapest labor in the world, and they sent the jobs to those laborers and sent the product back to us. But not anymore. We're building product here and shipping it overseas. Buy America and build America. I mean it. And what's really important, you made sure the auto future of the world will be made in America. Oh, I mean it. You know, I'm going to digress just a second. Most people don't know that back in the 30s, when Roosevelt was talking about the value of unions, he didn't just say unions are okay. He said any product that, in fact, the Congress, any money that Congress gives the president to spend to build a product, whether it's an aircraft carrier, an automobile, a tank, or a staircase, no matter what that was, it should be built. For a long time, the Congress would make an appropriation and send it to the president to spend, whether it's building an aircraft carrier or a staircase. And guess what? It was supposed to be built by an American worker with American products. Well, guess what? I'm going back to that. We build in America, we buy American. And here's what you all did. You won commitments from the big three to create thousands of more jobs, to invest tens of billions more dollars, building an auto future made in America. It wasn't just about what you did for the UAW workers. The fact is you've transformed the entire auto industry. That's not yet unionized, or as we call that, the UAW bump. Because of you, Toyota, Volkswagen, Nissan, Tulsa, all gave their workers double-digit raises. Because of you. Workers across the country have seen the largest wage increases for workers building cars and trucks and any other transportation equipment in nearly 30 years. Thousands of these workers are already asking to join your union. Even before this, the UAW has been expanding its reach to workers in auto plants and from auto plants to casinos. You can tell I don't spend much time there. But guess what most people don't know? But the UAW represents researchers in higher education and workers. And because of this union, I'm pleased and proud that you expanded the UAW to include 5,000 researchers at the National Institute of Health, UAW workers. I, honest to God, have always believed that the union movement in America is important because it produces the best skilled workers in the world. That's what happens. It's good for everybody. It's good for companies. It increases the quality of the jobs, the quality of the products, and it's good for economic growth. In fact, I asked, which is unusual for a president to do, I asked the Treasury Department to do a significant study, the most comprehensive report ever, detailing how unions are good for all workers, including non-union workers, how they found that unions raise standards across workplaces and industry, improving skills and safety, pushing up wages, strengthening the benefits for everyone. It matters. It matters. It matters. And some in corporate America finally began to figure it out. And look at what we're doing. It's good for workers and companies. Since I took office, we've attracted billions of dollars in investment here in the United States. We supercharged advanced manufacturing, including electric vehicles made by union workers in America. China's determined to dominate that market.
All right, well, we have been listening to President Biden delivering the keynote address at the United Auto Workers Conference in Washington. We'll continue monitoring what the president says and bring you any headlines. Before that, UAW President Shawn Fain announced that the union is endorsing Biden for president. He spoke about the importance of the UAW's leadership over the decades in working for its members and inspiring other labor unions to do the same.
Yeah, and we heard the president there speak about building in America, buying in America, a common refrain, and he spoke of how his administration has been backing the American workers, unlike during the Trump administration, he says. CBS News senior White House correspondent Weijia Jiang joins us now to speak about what we've just heard and what it means. Weijia, how significant is the UAW's endorsement, considering the president has long called himself the most pro-union president ever? How will this endorsement translate, possibly?
Well, it is very significant because it's not just about the UAW. This is one of the most prominent unions in the country. And so the hope is that other unions, other union members will also look to this and use it as a guide as they deliberate about who to vote for. But of course, the ultimate question, Errol and Lana, is how much these political endorsements really matter when you're talking about individual voters who have a lot of other issues that they are concerned about. We did hear from the president of the UAW, Shawn Fain, who said, you know, Joe Biden earned this. He came and stood with us literally on the picket lines, and he put pressure on the automakers when he said that he believed the union workers should continue to fight for a 40% pay raise. But it's important to note that you know, especially in a state like Michigan, there's a huge Arab American population there. And the UAW has come out and joined other organizations calling for a ceasefire. And because there is that huge population there, again, you know, we have to remember these voters have a lot of different things that they are weighing when they go and actually cast their ballots. But certainly this is a win for President Biden, who, as you mentioned, brands himself as the most pro-union president ever. And so if he were not to get this, it would raise a lot of questions about his loyalties, which, again, the union president has said the president has shown time and time again.
Weijia, would love to get your take about how the Biden administration and other folks there are feeling, not only about Biden's win in New Hampshire, but about former President Trump topping the Republican results.
Well, they said that this is a signal that it is probably going to be Donald Trump who the Biden faces off against. In fact, the campaign sent out a statement that said in no uncertain terms, my message to the country is the stakes could not be higher, because they say it is clear that Trump is going to be the Republican nominee. So now they are going all in on the general election. Of course, Nikki Haley probably doesn't like to hear that, but the Biden campaign wants this to crystallize for voters, because I spoke with some campaign officials recently who say they believe that a lot of voters don't know yet that Trump is going to be the nominee, or they don't believe that that's actually going to happen. And so they are banking on the fact that when he becomes the official nominee, that that's actually going to help their camp and their case. Because they say once it becomes clear that it's down to Trump and their candidate Biden, people will shift toward Biden. But, you know, that's one perspective, right, guys? Because, you know, we know a lot of voters. We've been talking to so many voters who are very plugged in, who are very aware that this is probably what it's going to come down to. But they are really trying to send the message that, you know, it's, you know, the democracy's at stake. This is something that the president has talked about over and over. So what we should expect is for him to name check Trump even more than he has which is something he used to not do, but he will begin calling him out at every opportunity he can to draw that distinction.
Really important points you make there, Weijia, and it just seems like, you know, for the rest of us that this is we're already in the presidential election campaign. And as you speak about the candidates shifting to that, going all in now, I understand that President Biden is kind of reshuffling staffing, taking some folks from the White House and moving them over to his re-election campaign team. Give us some insight on what's happening there.
Yeah, so these are two of his key aides here at the White House. Jen O'Malley Dillon, who actually was campaign manager for his 2020 successful campaign that brought him here to the White House, and Mike Donilon, who is his speechwriter, but more importantly, someone who's been by the president's side for basically his entire political career. Some people call him the Biden whisperer around here because the two men are so close. So it's not surprising that both Jen O'Malley Dillon and Mike Donilon will be joining in on the efforts to re-elect the president, because these are two very trusted aides who have extensive experience with campaigns. And again, now they are shifting all their focus to the general election. So the timing makes sense that they are really going to set a strategy for trying to win back the White House.
All right, Weijia, thank you.
Thank you, Weijia.
You're welcome.